multi-pronged approach. They go in and they attack the mass market from a lot of angles. It could also be interesting, but it's I think that's something for a bigger company. I think it's difficult for you. That's why we talk to you about do one thing, do that well. It's really hard. It's a difficult strategy. It's a strategy you can do when you are a market leader, I think. It's much harder when you're small.
When cost is not a real issue for you.
Yeah, when cost is an issue for you. So, okay, I talked to, and of course it's based on games. I'm a one-trick pony. If you look at this, can you explain why games based on movies are almost always really bad?
Well, they come right.
I wonder, is games based on movies or movies based on games?
No. If we say a game that's based on a movie, why will that almost always be bad?
The attention for the movie, they have to get those people before their attention wear out. So they have to develop something for quickly. So of course the quality gets compromised.
They're very limited on time. The whole point of making a movie-based game is to only have to market it once.
Yeah.
You market the movie and piggyback on that marketing campaign for the game. That's the whole point. So you have a very limited window of when you can actually make the game. And also, the movie has to be almost finished before you say, okay, we're making a game with this. Because if it isn't, then maybe you'll never see that movie, and then the whole point is gone. So a very limited amount of time and a very fixed date for release. And then, who makes it? Who makes a movie spin-off or a movie tie-in game? What kind of a company would make that? Would 20th Century Fox make it themselves?
Most likely starting developing games, like starting companies.
Doesn't have to be starting, but it's work for hire. It's not an auteur who's making it. It's not Blizzard would never do it. Valve would never do it. But it's work for a small to medium-sized developer, could be new, could be old, but it has a track record of actually shipping stuff on time, would get that contract in competition with other firms in the same segment. And how do you choose which one to give the contract? The one who's cheapest. So they have a very limited budget, a very limited time. Now, where can they be flexible? There. So, armed with this knowledge, I hope that no one here in this room ever again, if you ever did, go out and buy a game based on a movie, because it has to be. Has to be. By definition, the iron triangle is one of, I think, it's only one of a handful of laws in economics. The iron law of prohibition is one, that when you try to prohibit something that people have are addicted to, such as alcohol, you won't get rid of that substance. You will only increase its concentration. There is the iron law of the oligarchy that has a lot of different uses actually in politics as well, but there are just a handful of these, and this is one of them. Okay, it's often lumped in with them. So a game based on a movie has to be bad. That's what it says. So it's been, it's never been disproven. So don't. Okay, so move on to the next one. Going into how do we develop new products, including software. And I'm using one of my favorite theorists, Donald Norman. It's actually really funny because the first time I had a usability course, I thought it was really boring and I skipped it. But since then, I've been using him for pretty much any class I give him. But he describes traditional craftsmanship as refinement over time. It's a natural design process, okay? And he talks about the process as hill climbing in the dark, okay? You start out, what's the first thing man ever wanted to put their ass on, right? We have a market. People have a tendency to be tired in their legs. You know, we're bipeds. And, you know, all this, you know, the hips and the things aren't really made for standing up. So we get tired. Our legs get tired. So what do we do? We sit down. What do we sit down on? Any idea? The first man, the first monkey to sit his ass down on something, what did he sit on? He sat on a rock. And then he thought, you know, we got this whole savanna here, because I'm in Africa, and I got this rock, and I really want to, you know, bring it with me so I can sit comfortably next time. What are the problems with this thing? It's really heavy. It's a bit, you know, maybe it's a bit lumpy. And over time, he starts looking for other things to put his ass on that are more comfortable. Maybe it's a root. You know, it's a stump, a tree stump. Oh, that's okay. But still, you know. So the first guy who ever sells a chair to anyone, he probably made it like a log that's cut off. And then, you know, the guy comes back and he says, yeah, well, you know, it's okay, but it's a bit heavy. Can't you just cut off some pieces? Okay, so you cut off a piece. You have a log here. You cut out a hole here. And okay, like that. They have like a bench, you know, with 2 legs. And then he says, you know, but if you did the same thing, cut out that arch, also in this way, you'd have like 4 legs. Well, that's good. It's good. Much lighter, still pretty strong. Made of wood, same material that I'm used to. And okay, and over time, we start gravitating towards a structure like this, you know? All these really thin spines here at the back, each of them you could easily break, but when they're put together, you know, put into the actual seat of the chair here, because of course people want the next feature request that was, I want to lean back. You know, I'm already sitting, I'm resting my ass, but my back hurts. I want to lean back. Okay, how do we do that? Then they could take a bigger piece of wood and just chop it like that, and then you make those holes, but it's pretty heavy, right? It's a lot heavier, but this is pretty light. And have you ever noticed how many of these are there at any point in time? How many do you think, if you're going to, let's say there was some number of pieces of wood here that there can be, and some number of pieces of wood there really shouldn't be? There should be 1. Could be 2. Shouldn't be 3. Could be 4. You're seeing a pattern here. Odd numbers are really bad because they hit you right in the spine. And that's really uncomfortable. So it should be 1 on either side of your spine. That's comfortable. All of these things, you send it back, you make a new one, you send it back, you make a new one, you send it back. That is the natural design process. And it's called hill climbing in the dark because he visualizes it like this. You have, this is our design space, right? This is our design space. And what you're doing is you're trying out something. You're moving over here. No improvement. You're trying to get up, by the way, right? This is our design space, and we're trying to get higher up on the quality of product, right? Okay, so you're in the dark, and you're trying to move up, and maybe if you're like me, oh, you bump into something, and oh, it's higher here. That means I can get up. I can get a little higher. Okay, but it's in the dark. You can't see anything. You can't see anything. Okay, so how about if I take a step this way? Oh no, that'd be bad. We don't want to design the chair that way. Let's see over here. No. So I try all the directions I can, and in the end, I've reached the highest point I can. But what you will notice is this is not the highest possible point. Also, you guys. This isn't the highest possible level of design we can have for a chair. There is, in fact, a place over here, which is even higher. It's even a better chair. But through the natural design process, I can't get here unless I climb back down again from my peak over here. Okay. So what he's established is some of the parameters. What does it take to develop a product in this way? And what can you accomplish with it? So I'm going to go through that again. You have to have enough time. You have to have a simple product, like a chair, thing for sitting your ass on. Started out this area started flat, then you made a groove shaped like a bum, and it's better. And you keep on refining it. And it takes a lot of time to get from a sitting on a rock to sitting on a modern chair. All these kinds of, all the angles, look at the angles of the legs. That's not incidental. None of these things are. Modern industry, there are some really contrary forces that work against you. There's no way to track feedback in the same way. People don't come back to you and, hey, look at that, because it's not like I make a chair for you and you come back to me and say, yeah, the last chair you made, it was a bit low, I could make it higher. You have millions of customers, and it's really hard to get feedback from just one of them. Now imagine all of them. It's super hard. It's very often, so Norman describes, a new model already on the assembly line. So the moment this guy comes back and, hey, this chair is terrible, I sit on it and my butt hurts. We're already making more of them, and more and improve with, you know, one more of those pieces of wood right here on your spine. I'm sorry, we have to sell those first. I have to sell 1 million of those first, and then we can fix it. And of course, it's really, you know, you have to, that thing that comes off the assembly line is new, exciting, improved with extra features, and somebody is doing their damnedest to sell this to people. And a focus on that is going to obfuscate the actual value a user gets. And it has to do with standing out. It has to do with, in Norwegian, but anyway, it needs to be individual and differentiated to stand out, because there's so many people making things and they're in direct competition. One guy making a chair in a village in Africa, another guy making a chair in a village in India, they're not directly competing. But a factory in Africa and a factory in India, they are competing. And stuff needs to be different. There has to be something. The one in Africa has to be cheaper, or it has to be of higher quality, or it has to be, you know, in the new trendy color like right now while it's still trendy. It has to stand out. And if you can't do that, you make up something that makes it kind of sort of stand out. And that is often more important to it getting bought than that it's actually better. So this whole hill climbing in the dark natural design process isn't really working anymore. And we're going to talk about designers failing. And this is, I think he actually has it on the cover of his second book. Does anybody know this thing? It's
the Philip Stark's orange squeezer.
Yeah, it's a Alessi juicer. And what you see is it's very nice, very, you know, very sleek. And in a way, the form follows function perfectly with this thing. You squeeze your lemon up here, and the lemon juice just follows the grooves, and you put your glass in under here and it clips into it. And of course, as a design guy, Donald Norman thought, oh wow, that looks so cool, I gotta have one of those. And he went into the shop and he bought it, and he said, oh, there's a limited edition. That's even better, I'll have that. They bought the limited edition. And it was gold plated. Gold plated, oh, sounds good. He takes it home and he reads a card that comes with it. And that it shouldn't be used with acidic fruits. What? No, because the acid dissolves the gold plating. And it's like, what? This is a juicer. You can't juice it. It doesn't make any sense.
Keep it on the shelf, but not allowed us to use.
Because it's a conversation piece. Now it's gone from something that was form follows function, a new way of thinking about a juicer, to being something that you just put on a shelf. It's not really a juicer anymore. But to me, that's going bankrupt in terms of usability. And he comments on these things that are in a similar vein. They probably won a prize. And it's a huge problem, because designers, and what designers typically recognize and think that's cool, it's not what a typical user would recognize and what's important to them. And very often when you're making something, and has anybody ever tried to take the tram in Oslo? Someone? I did. It's not, Ruta's system isn't fantastic, to put it that way. Incidentally, one of my best friends is in charge of that now. So every time I'm annoyed with it, I call him up and I say, "Your system is terrible." And he says, "I know." But the problem here is that who's the client? When they develop that system, the client is Ruta. It's not me. And Ruta has all these requirements. They really like to track where people go, so that they can see, okay, on this particular stretch, from Stortinget to Sundsvall, there's not that much traffic in the middle of the day. So we don't need to send the train out every 10 minutes. Once every 12 minutes is actually fine. We'll save, one train, and we can put that in here to Ellingsrud, because it's really jam-packed all the time. Great for them. However, that system requires me, as a user, to have a card that's prepaid, and to get in, there's the train, it's coming, and I have to stop at this gate, and I have to put in my card, and I go beep, and I have to try again, beep, and there it goes, and I'm late. That only makes me pissed. And you know what happens? I jump over that gate, and they don't get that data. And I'm pissed, and they don't get the data, and the people who are responsible for that system, they get low customer satisfaction, and they have to do it again. A lot of the times you get into these situations where you have a client that is not the user. Right? A couple of you are making games for children. These children are not your clients. They are never going to go into iOS store, read through the description, and look at how many stars are, and say, I'm going to buy that with my own money for my piggy bank. And you just scan the piggy bank over the tablet. No, your clients are the parents. You're selling it to the parents. And sometimes that's going to be a blessing, because that means you can get away with some things that kids are never going to accept. And sometimes that's going to be a terrible curse, because you have a product that's perfect for kids, but you can't sell it to the parents. But no matter what happens, it's a design failure. Right? And the design process for new products, especially huge software, complex software products, like we see today, where you have to satisfy, both government branch and as a partly private investor and end users and the people who are going to manage it at any given time. Hugely complex process. And if any of you feel like I'm often tempted to write at those people who make those systems off as idiots, don't, because they probably did the best they could with what they had at the moment. It's very seldom useful to think of, people are stupid, or we could have done so much better. Try to look into why is this system so hopelessly terrible, and what were the conditions that made that happen, and can that be changed in some way? Many factors. I mean, there are very different understandings of a given problem. Like you said, find a problem and solve that. This is find a platform that solves all kinds of problems in this space, right? But even so, even if you have a problem that's pretty clear, a lot of people understand it differently. Now, why? Like for you guys, what is the problem? Is the problem that people don't move around much? Is the problem that people, pay for their gym membership but don't use it? Why is that? How do you solve that? What's the actual underlying problem there? So there's a lot of approaches. Do you want to comment?
I don't know if it's taking time to
yeah. Okay. We can talk later. But also, you very often think of like you mentioned with personas that I took up last time. Instead of making okay, you have this user and you have that user, you think of it like an imagined average user. And the problem, of course, is that nobody is average. If you make an average stroller for these guys, none of them can use it. That average person does not exist. You have to find some actual people who can, actual users that you think and listen to them. And then even those end users, you ask them what they want, they'll have no idea because they are not innovators. Typically, and this is especially true in technology and for games, you can often, like a decade ago or two, you have these big companies who would have focus groups come in and talk about what kind of games would they want. And those games, invariably, what those people would say would be some kind of mix and match of any feature that was in the most popular game at the time. So if Quake was big, then you wanted 3D shooting with monsters. If Tetris was big, you wanted blocks and building. And then maybe you thought that would be cool if you could combine that. So Tetris blocks and shooting, and that would be great. And none of those games were any fun to play at all. People didn't ask Steve Jobs, or Steve Jobs didn't ask people, what kind of phone do you want? He said, you want this phone. Just try it. People would say, no, that's weird. And some of the other people in the business of making phones would laugh at him and say, well, that's not what people want. They want keyboards. They want, And they had an idea of what people want. But people don't know what they want until they try it. So you have to build it. They are not innovators. If they were, people would just be going around making weird gadgets and new forms of government and all kinds of things all the time. And they don't. And there's a reason for that. The mass market isn't innovative and doesn't and have a strong reluctance to accepting it. And that is why we have to help them.
And just a couple of words there. I'm going to be coming back to that in the lecture I'll be having in a few weeks. And that there's the guy who's proposed what we call an outcome-driven innovation process. And what he's asking for, what he's recommending is that what you need to do is absolutely right. You can't ask the user. So he was looking at whatever project you ask users what they want, and you develop and not buy it in many cases. So what he's saying is that what you need to know is what the users are unhappy with and how important that is for them. Because there are lots of things they're unhappy about, but if it's not important, they're not going to pay to have it fixed. Yeah. So you need to know how important it is and so you've got both the willingness to pay and the importance of the problem. And with that, you can pick out these are the things they are really annoyed about, and it's important to them, so they're willing to pay.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things. I think it's a very good point. I mean, like, people like to complain about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. I mean, and the thing is, we could do something about it. We could live in caves underground. There would be no, but the cost is not a monetary cost. It's a different cost altogether. It's completely possible. Could live in glass domes. The cost of that is immense, and it has a lot of consequences that aren't just economical. But it's totally doable to do something about the weather. It's not like we have to endure it if we did, but it does cost. So it doesn't bother us enough, and sometimes it's even fun and good to have something to complain about. Anyway, so there's another Don Lohmann quote: "Poor designer," but the poor designer is he just has the worst of luck. He narrows down to these two factors: that if a new product is introduced to the market and fails, it's not very likely to get a second chance. You could get 1 at 2 at most. If you try to push something, I at one point I worked with WAP technology. Anybody know or heard about WAP technology?
The old guys.
The old timers, yeah, WAP technology. So was that sexy, cool, innovative? Well, yeah. Yeah? At the time? At the time, well, but it didn't quite catch on. No. And I got a job working with WAP after it failed.
Oh, that's great.
And we made some things on WAP with my, in the company I was hired. I was actually quite good, quite useful for people. And not terribly, because one of the problems was that you had to pay like 2 kroner a minute to watch a really crappy web page on an LCD monochrome display. Who wants to do that? You can hardly like read an article, and you already paid like 200 kroner. But what we did with it was actually, quite useful. Not fantastic, but it's something you could pay 2 kroner for. But nobody would say, oh, that's just lame. Yeah, we tried that 2 years ago. It was stupid. Because you don't get that second chance. It's tainted. But then when you juxtapose it with this, it usually takes 5 to 6 tries to get your part right. Then it becomes really, really sad. Does anybody know what the solution is? You need 5 tries, and you only get 2. What's the solution?
Small groups maybe, so we don't get the whole population.
Yeah. You test it with smaller groups, or in-house even. In one market, try it out in one market, and then in some other market that doesn't really communicate much with that one. New Zealand is very popular for testing out mobile games because they're kind of European, kind of like us, and same kind of taste, same kind of language, but we don't talk to them. And they're on the other side of the universe, so it's fine. But that's one of the things. A lot of mobile games they roll out in New Zealand, and then it's a small group, like you said, with the innovators, right? There's small groups, easy to see if they're adopting it, if things are going wrong or whatever. Very high visibility because there aren't that many. But yeah.
There is something that the design approach, like giving several iterations, is great to solving problems. It's great to find solutions to problems. But when it's about innovation, you really need to have just the right try. Just need to take it the right time and the right thing out there and have that one chance. The other things, the other options will be trying several times, as you said,
several different models. But it has to do with dividing up. You can get lucky, but you can't really count on being lucky. But so it's about iteration. And Rune and I, did we talk about this in the recess? It's really about making a thing and then running into problems. Because you pitched today, and your pitches weren't perfect, and that's perfectly fine. It had to be that way. It's impossible.
It couldn't be much different.
It can't. So we gave you some feedback, and someone may sound like criticism, but it's only criticism insofar as it's a criticism that everyone would have gotten, because it is fundamentally impossible to do it right the first time. You need 5 tries, and you only had 1, but you're going to get more tries. And so in the end, when you come up, when you go to Innovation Norway at the end of the course, you'll have something that they can't say no to. Yeah.
I had talked to a couple of students here in the break as well, and they were kind of saying, okay, but we got this other recommendation, other input from one of the other supervisors. So it's the same thing here as with the customers. You don't always know what it's going to look like until you try. So sometimes you have to go the wrong way to realize it's the wrong way. So there will be iterations because you're going to try. Or maybe we need to broaden this because it's too narrow. And when you broaden it, then the feedback is, no, it's too broad. You need to narrow it. And it's hard to know whether it needs to be broadened or narrowed until you try one and say, this is not the right way to go. Let's try the other way. Maybe the other way doesn't work. Maybe you need to go sideways. But you don't know. That's the thing. These are complex problems. You don't know upfront what's going to work.
These are it's problems that have to deal with the future. So you can't know. There's no way to know. And you can either debate them, which is 9 times out of 10 pretty fruitless once you've reached a certain point. I'll give you an example. I just started working for a company making games again. I'm really happy about that, psyched about that. But I looked at the first thing they asked me to do was make a review of our game. And so I did. And a lot of the times I get feedback that, yeah, well, we know that that's a problem. We talked to the publisher, but they won't let us fix it, or they have other ideas. And their whole fundamental model is they have to get a lot of, the designers have to get a lot of approval for features. Isn't a fantastic way of doing it, because sure, the designers don't know if it's going to work, but nor does management know if it's going to work, or the publisher know. And I said, a fundamental problem here is that you should try more things. Try more different things. If you have a disagreement, do an A/B test. Try this thing with half of the people who play the game and the other thing with the other half of the people who play the game. And they are going to tell you. They're going to tell you in no uncertain terms which one is the best. And there's no, I mean, they talk about, oh, we've been trying to get that feature in for 3 months. But, and then I said, but this is a feature that should maybe take 2 weeks to make. And then there's no point in having a discussion or a quarrel that goes on. You just say, okay,
let's try.
Let's just try it. There's a point at which, I mean, it makes sense to discuss things. So you don't have an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H test. But at some point, you're going to find the dividing lines. We should either go broader or narrower. This game should either be a more casual game or a more hardcore game. And at that point, when you see where the dividing lines go, that's when you test it.
And sometimes I'm saying, sometimes you make the wrong choice, but you couldn't know at the time, and you will only know after you do it. And then you can see what it should be. And that's kind of, you could say that's kind of a cost, but that's how you can deal with that uncertainty of not exactly knowing. You can only know after you try. And I think that's why, as you were saying the other day, getting visual, the first lecture, getting visuals, getting small prototypes, small demos as early as possible, that will be the way to see this goes the right way or this needs to be changed.
You need people to do that.
Yeah, people. So you guys, hopefully, a lot of you said that you use Scrum, so you're familiar with this spiral model, right? From Barry Beam, right? Raise your hand, everyone who's not familiar with it. Never seen it. What the hell is that shit about? Okay, that's good. And but this is quite complicated. I mean, I really enjoy it, but it shows you a movement where you go through all these, 4 phases: determining objectives, identifying, resolving risks, developing, test, and then planning next iteration. However, I find that going again back to games, simplifying things. Jesse Shell made the rule of the loop, which is pretty simple. Every time you make it, it gets better. And what you do is you just do this as many times as you can. The simplest explanation of iteration I've ever seen. Design something, you make something, you test something, you take that feedback and redesign it. That is basically how you work and improve your innovation, how you improve your product and get it out. This is all aspects of making a product. Your market, your business plan, everything. Just keep working. And if at some point you run out of money or time or whatever, and then you'll just have to ship it. That's fine. But this is the most sort of simple, fundamental explanation of it. So I like that. Simple is good. Now, how many of you, I mean, I often get into this. I say, we're going to tell students to work with Scrum or work iteratively, and then I often end up in a situation where they haven't tested. I want to point out that you cannot have an iteration if you haven't tested it. If you remove this, you're stuck here. You can have several implementations, but that doesn't count as an iteration because you haven't completed the loop. And Jesse Shell doesn't say every time, well, he does say every time you make it, it gets better, but that's not really true. Every time you make it and test it and get feedback and redesign it, it gets better. So every time you go through the loop, it gets better, but not just for making a different thing, slightly just because you wanted it, it weren't the way you imagined it. Even if it's not the way you imagined it, it's even better if it isn't the way you imagined it, and see if it works anyway. Just get it out the door, make something, and then you can get some, because the feedback you get here is so much more valuable than the feedback you get in here and just in this room. As again, as Truls said, get out, put it in the hands of people, real people. Let's have a small break, 5 minutes, and then see how much time, what time is it?
20 minutes.
20 to 3, oh Jesus Christ, I'm always, too many stories. Okay, let's see if I can't compress the rest into something that's useful. It looks like you're going to have to do some of the things I hope we do together at home. But that's okay. You could, yeah, the business canvas. I'll put that up as a task next time. And also the next thing that I'm going to show you is going to be a task for next time. And but it's and you guys are so inspiring. You make me come on with all these stories.
Yep. So I just wrote a little script for getting the tweets.
Oh, yeah, the tweets are on the.
But in real time.
Yeah.
So everybody, every time someone tweets about Apple, I get it.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
So it doesn't do much yet, but just, you know.
Something like that.
Yeah, or for using coffee good apart from selling us your fees. It's like,
Yeah, which format I did? What you said?
coffee script. Yeah, for Jason, yes. So you see all the structures, the user.
It doesn't look nice. And I know that now the it was very weird and not drawing, maybe
I did.
not. So getting source to right and what's actually I want to do.
Yeah.
So I was taking some courses.
Yeah.
And then what we did was there is this thing called State of the Union speech. That's Obama.
Listening about it.
So tracking of the conversations
I'm
and the
writing
hashtags
because
attached
now
to
it's
the
so much
tweets.
work.
Right. So the whole interface was
Oh,
the first one,
congratulations! Yeah.
the graph.
In that case, do it now because you only have so much less time. It's like when we had a baby, it was like an order of magnitude less time. But okay, not trying to scare you.
Changing to colors in which region of the United States there were people talking about that specific topic. So while the State of the Union speech was running, and the people just could
You could see it
you
in
could see it in
real
real time and just change like what in which direction you want to talk, or which people was interested in that topic. And then that was it. And then you collected the of course
afterwards.
from Twitter and everything. It's because Twitter gives they have a GitHub account which they actually collect data and just leave it for people.
I mean, the thing is, you have to share it to get feedback, pushback. Just be careful with who do you share with. Is it a laggard? Is it like a very conservative old guy? Yeah, I'd really very much like to see it.
Roll over the other stuff. Took over, especially they were telling me in front of the table saying, if you will learn something like something you will make use, just JavaScript. And because the whole title of the class was creative explorations in screen-based technologies and physical computing. So everything from creating a basic website to creating I used Beaglebot to create an interaction for a poll system. So people can just push buttons in a breadboard that I create. So people create buttons responding to answers, and that was saved. And that was my Beaglebot thing. And then the project that you did, then you could keep the Beaglebot. Then have them. But all these things I learn a lot. And I want to go in this stuff. But of course, I think here as It's a master in interaction design.
Yeah.
So I was thinking in taking the.
Okay, no, let's go with
That's why I went
no.
there. But I applied
Good luck with the
for
meeting. I'll put these things up on Fronter, and we'll have a.
Okay, but you
Yeah.
have to show that you have background. To enter to master.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, but
So I showed that, I said, yeah, I can.
Okay, so what does it do? You have.
Yeah, I have programming, I have all these things, I showed this. And then I went back and she said, no, the professor and everyone just decided that this course is just for masters in computer science, so we're gonna take it because you're in master.
No, so we
Instead of
changed that.
the office
So we changed
picking,
the-
which time
we
you should go.
see you fit, you
That's-
can do it.
When you call them now,
Yeah.
well, now it's
Yeah,
just
but
busy
right now,
now.
I'm like too late into the process.
Now it's too late, yeah.
So maybe it would be useful if I get the chance next time, but of course, if
Because we want to merge, yeah, we want to do more with interaction designers. I mean, you
I
would
told-
be perfect, right?
I told Miriam, like, it's weird because Rune told me that, or told us in this class,
Yeah.
that you wanted to interact, to
Yes.
integrate projects between different
Yeah.
devices.
Yeah.
So that was different careers, so.
No, I'm not sure why she said that, because we purposefully changed that, so then integration project from this year on can be taken by the, interaction design students. Because historically it wasn't. Historically those two tracks were separate,
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know, Miriam Denman was the one that chose my profile, she saw
No,
my
you have to
background, and
explain,
she
sorry.
said, oh, yeah, just get into master in interaction design. That was my priority, because master interaction design first, and second computer design.
All
So
right.
either what,
Either one or more.
since I got accepted in interaction, they say, no, yeah, you can apply in more for computer.
Right.
Okay, so I will take the courses in the interaction design. But I'm eager to work in development anytime, and I want to.
But I think that now you're going, I was doing more things.
Then you can do things.
Because that's two functions.
Prototype things
Be careful,
yourself.
try to make something that's the one, and see how that, I mean, it's not the same, I know it's not the same, but when I make games, what's very easy is you have a core,
The
and then
data
you add
inside the
to it. Oh, this feature, you should also be able to dig, and,
There was a
oh yeah, and if you dig, you build things from it.
It's a
Build
search
things,
bar.
and then, yeah, and you should be able to like fly around and look at things. Now,
They were loaded.
let's say, it does the fixture to make what we already have better. Or is it just try to find what's different. And it's a booking system, right? And the booking system is well, so the other stuff doesn't make it better. It sounds to me, well, it doesn't really make the booking better. It just makes, it's one more thing about
I
it.
have that down right now.
But you'll have to decide. I mean,
There was another.
it's your idea, but look at, like, this, I think it's
And
a very
also we
good
did
thing
some
to have.
interaction with.
What's the core
We tried the D3
function?
library.
And
And we
if you
also
want to add
tried
something,
processing. We tried processing.
do it only if
was
it makes
amazing.
what's already there
We
better.
were trying to.
And over time, what's already there is going to change.
It was a lot of fun too.
And at some point, it's like, there's so many things that adding one thing doesn't really make that better, it's just one more
Trying to
thing.
do more. than-
Very easy to say, oh, we have all these other things, and the only thing that's missing is that,
Yeah, just do something.
because that can ruin the whole thing.
You know,
It's like
courses
the
are
house of cards falling down. So think about that, and I think it's a pretty decent idea. I've had a problem like just yesterday. I missed my doctor's appointment for
That's right.
a brain scan, so I had to wait months to get it again.
Can interaction students do our integration project?
It depends on the background.
Yeah, but if the background is fine.
The background wasn't fine, I think, because there wasn't enough programming
I
background.
got programming.
Need 20 credits programming.
They gave me 10, it was 10 in the list.
I think it could be, you have to think about it, because
It was
it's
like
a lot of like
16
sensitivity
from my bachelor and
issues
20
and
from Harvard.
data security,
4 from
all
Harvard,
kinds
so I
of
got
things.
20.
So it's a bit complex,
But
but
anyway, it's not.
I'll tell you one thing that my father-in-law uses.
That was
His
one of the reasons
dentist,
why I was in there yesterday, because I
he
was
has an
talking to
SMS
Sonia
to go out.
to-
When somebody has one
They're in this
an
group.
SMS goes out.
So my point.
Remember,
was
you have
to
you have a
pitch that
dentist appointment
idea
tomorrow,
in the moment.
and then another one just the hour before.
Yeah, they were-
Remember, in 1 hour. Because then they can't say, oh, well, I didn't know.
Yeah, stop anything that you
Yes, it is. We send it out. So it's so once you have to pay for it now. So that's but the integration with that.
I don't mind right now.
Yeah, it's hard because you can't go on the Google Calendar.
So you're doing.
Your hepatitis B came out positive. You can't go on Google Calendar. It can be sent by SMS. I don't know. So it's a lot of challenges. So I really look into those things and definitely talk to your doctor. Some of those things. They're like that on purpose. The reason why you can't book the time is because they don't want to show you how much free time they have, because they have a lot. And they have a lot, but they use that to fill in patients that they need now, or helping for a kid that got sick, or just to catch up on some paperwork. So it's a good way of doing it is looking from, the angle of make personas, what you want for all the people who are stakeholders in such an act. Patients, because that's what very much we're doing now. But also think about the doctor, think about the woman who, or guy who makes the appointments with the doctors. Think about the health ministry of health. Put all these people in there and see, and so role play, what would they want, what do they think of this feature? I think that will help. Is a game, a piece of interactive or entertainment software doesn't have to be fun in a sort of very narrow sense. It can be saddening, a sad game. It can be frightening if it's a horror game. It could be something that makes you think. If it's an educational game, it makes you want to get better. Some of you working with educational, motivational software. It has to be not necessarily fun. I mean, like Tulsi, he didn't, he said, yeah, I'm not a gym person. I'm not a gym person. And I'm doing this and then getting, the malkesyre going in my legs, and being all stiff, and then being like this for 3 days. It's not fun, but it can be engaging. And it can be good for my body even though it doesn't feel that way. But what do we test? We test the riskiest features first. You came up to me in the recess and you talked about this idea. And there are a lot of parts of that idea that totally see it's a market for that, it makes sense, would be useful, but there are also some risks. And we didn't talk about those risks until really late. And that's really very common. You want to talk about the good parts of your idea, the things that you think will work, and things that are great. But then there's often an elephant in the room. It's going to be really hard to make, like for instance, your idea, make it not be a breach of patient doctor confidentiality things. Just sending, how do we do those things? And the thing is, approach those, the riskiest things are the ones you should make a prototype for and test first. And for some of you, that will actually mean a prototype that tests if the market is correct, if the kids can understand your app, or if housewives will actually want to put their leftovers in the plastic thingy, because that's the most crucial thing. And we have this fantastic risk value matrix, which is kind of interesting. Maps value up here and risk over here. And to make it really simple, you can't. There are versions of this where you can have some gray areas and things. But let's just make 4 quadrants, divided into 4, and we have some features or some aspects, because this can be used not only for features, it can be used for whole sort of aspects of your game, like your market share or target demographics, lots of things. You can put in and have a look at what features are high risk but also high value. Can really and what these things up here are usually what sets your game or your software apart. Is high risk because nobody's tried it. So a lot of things that we talked about with software, it only happens, like why does it take so long? Why can't you plan properly for it? Because we're always dealing with the future. We're always dealing with unsolved problems. If there were solved problems, the product would be on a shelf and you pick it down, right, from the shelf. Like I want to write a letter on my computer. There's an app for that. Just pick it off the shelf or download it, and it's a solved problem. But that's not what software engineers are working on. We're working on unsolved problems. We don't know. It's like asking, when will you find a cure for cancer? We don't know. We don't know even if we will ever find a cure for cancer. But we can say we're making some headway, but we can't really determine. It's not quite like that, but it's kind of like that for us. So we have some things here that aren't solved, new things, and they are risky just because they're new, but they're also potentially the thing that's going to sell our software. That's our idea, our innovation is here because it's new, it isn't tested. And then you have some things over here, which are low risk, but high value. Those are the meat and potatoes. Those are the easy targets, the low-hanging fruits of software development. That's the thing that always works. If you were making a game, having a character that moves, across the screen and jumps. That's a low-hanging fruit. It's always, and if you have a nice sound from your gun, boom, works every time. It's people like it, particle effects, all those kind of things. People like them, and it works, and it gives good feedback, and it feels nice to control it with a bit of physics on it. But it's not risky because we've seen it 100 times and it always works. So that's fine. The basis for a piece of software, well, we say we're going to make a new word processor. It's fine. We have all these things. We need to find and replace and copy paste and big letters and small letters, but then you want to take something like completely different. Instead of thinking in absolute font sizes, we think in relative font sizes. Instead of thinking in columns, we think in areas. We want to make a mind map, and then from the mind map, we generate the text. Oh, that's new, that's different, that's way up here. That's the only thing that could actually make somebody buy our word processor instead of Microsoft Word, would be that you use that mind map feature. But all the other things, those are pretty safe. You can put those in. And over here, we have low risk, low value. This is like often very sort of ornamental things that have been done. Has been always there, and you don't question. Yeah, just put it in. Some people are going to ask where were they if you didn't have it. And then it's the last one: high risk, low value. A lot of times, you just want to make something, and it's interesting. We fall into this trap a lot as people who are, into technology, who work with technology. It's an exciting project. This would be something cool to do. Example from my work would be procedural generation of levels for games, which would mean that every time you start a game, there would be a hill here, and that hill would be in a different place all the time, and different monsters would come out with them. Every time they would have different weapons and do weird things. Only problem is, 9 times out of 10, all those different monsters are shit. And it doesn't matter how that level is, because it's really boring to play. So you procedurally generate something that's bad. Instead of just having, okay, we have 5 different monsters, and they're all balanced, they're all fun, and 3 maps. And that's fine. So you can play that a couple of times, and then you get bored, but that's fine. At least those 15 times that you play, it's really exciting. So you make something that's fun to make, typically here, things that are fun to make, but it's not low value for the customer. In this thing, you always have to focus on the customer. What's of high value for the customer? What's low value for the customer? So that's your, and can anybody tell me which of these do we start testing? We're going to make a prototype. Do we make a prototype here first, where we have all the safe, tried features, or do we make a prototype here, where we have all these crazy ideas that we really want to make because now is the time. Now we're in school now, so we can make all those crazy ideas now. It doesn't matter if they're useful or not. Yeah.
For innovation, I think there's approach of trying risky. Trying risk is the most effective. You need to look for the opportunities that they're not already there.
So which quadrant?
For the high risk and not particularly low value, but high risk. And if you can reach in the first stage of testing high risk and high value, we'll go for it. Yeah. Then we'll find it.
I think moving through it like this is usually a good idea. You start with the things that are risky, but it's going to be the make or break of that software, that project you're making. You move on to fill up with all the features and all the things that people expect to be there. There are low-hanging fruits, easy to make, people who made them before, all those things. And then there are some things that people might expect, or some people might ask, and it might be used every once in a while, so just like to use a word processor example again, like what's that called? When you merge documents. How many people use merge documents more than once?
Yeah.
No, merge documents. That's when you have one document with names and titles, and then you have another document with just the text. So like, dear Mr. X, and then you find the X, and you make. If you have 100 names, then you put in, so it makes like 100 documents with all the names and all the titles and all the things. I did that once when I was learning how to use Word, and then since then, never. So okay, it's not risky. It's not giving a lot of value to people either. I mean, if none of us if you have, most of us don't even know what it is, and none of us have used it more than once, then we can seriously, it's fine, we can drop that. And then all the crazy things. The biggest value of having this quadrant is to find all the things that you should never do. You just should never do that. You should always have a focus on why is it valuable to the customer or the end user even. Customer, whoever's paying you or the person who's going to use it. If it's only valuable to you and it's only valuable because you think it's neat or fun, you shouldn't do it. This is a hobby. It was a huge problem for a lot of us, I think, that we mix hobby and work. You know, we're doing things when you get sufficiently high enough educated. I mean, you have to like sort of have both hobby and work mixed in. But these are the things that should really be on your free time, and you shouldn't bother other people with having to pay for it, because that's just it's not useful to use project money that could be better spent in one of these categories down here. So you move it there. Yeah, I had an example, but I'm. How many people have played Robot Unicorn Attack? Yeah. So I'll just run through randomly generated level, high risk, high value. That's something you really have to like. Does it work? You have to really test that first. The dynamic jumping, been done a lot of times. You hold down the button and the unicorn jumps further. If you just tap it, it makes a little hop. That works every time. So you put that in, you know it's going to work. Something, okay, low risk, low value. It's dolphins come up whenever you get 10,000 points. Yeah, it's neat, but if it wasn't there, no problem. And then here, it's something they probably cut. Maybe they wanted procedural music, but they shouldn't have. So it's fine. So what I want for next time is you put your project in here. Put down a feature list, you know, the core features, the things you think are most important, and then just put them in there and find out what you really have to make new prototypes for and what you really, really should cut. You just have to do that. That's okay. That's fun, interesting, but really not worth it. And then wait out. Well, we have more. I'm going to really quickly now go through testers, because I could talk a long time about this, but I'm not gonna. Jakob Nielsen has an article that's called "Why You Only Need to Test with 5 Users," and he uses this graph here to tell us why. And there's some points on this graph that are really good, just to keep in mind. That if you have no testers, you get no insights. If you do not test it with people, you will learn nothing about your software. And there's the next point on the graph. If you have 15 testers, you're pretty close to knowing everything there is to know about your software in terms of usability and the bugs and the crap that's going to pop up on a normal session. And then, it's a very interesting line right here, where you get diminishing returns for putting in extra testers, which is at 5. It starts from having a, what do you call it? I don't know these terms in English, but anyway, you start getting diminishing returns. And that's where it's most economical to stop testing. I mean, it's 5 people. I'm pretty sure that no matter how pressed for time you are and how many ECTS you take in other courses, you can get your prototype that you hopefully have made by now and get it out and get 5 people to try it out and find what are the issues with what you've made. And just going to elaborate a bit on that, why don't you use 15 testers? Because you can split your resource in 3 tests in 5 and get a lot more valuable information. Because every new test corrects the previous one, reveals some of the errors that you missed the last time, and allows you to dig deeper. You found some issues, and now you can go beyond them. And 15 tests with 1 user each, that requires a lot of resources to set up 15 tests. You have to make, actually, making a test is a huge job. And so making 3 tests is a lot more better spent time for who's ever doing the testing, the test leader, than it is to make 15 with one person who's also can have a bit of deviant behavior. I mean this in the best of ways, not sort of, you know, whipping in the dungeon or anything, and that just bad luck, just happens. So for the next time, I want you to go and make a risk value matrix of your project. I want you to I'll put the canvas, the business canvas, put that up because I think that's a really useful thing. It'll be a little preemptive because we're going to talk more about it next time. Let's put that out there, and so you can download it and start filling it out. And some things here. To test your prototype on the other groups, on 5 people, and after results, review your prototype and find out what challenge does this prototype you've had address, and what other prototypes will you need, and what's the most critical challenge that it addresses. And I'd like a feature list that comes sort of, you know, with the risk value matrix. So you do that anyway. But if you want to make user stories, because that's whatever you know that fits with the project methodology you've chosen, do that. Do the same for the report, because you're going to make a report, right? Just plan it out. Prioritize the task. Estimate. Do a little story time. Estimate. Do a little estimation, and think of some points you think can be done by the next lectures, and just do those. That was a home assignment. Agree on some days when you meet at work. I know that some of you had some challenges with this. Just get together and work, test your prototypes, and I'll put up some reading and research for you on Fonter. Okay.
That's for when?
That's for I'll put all of the information on Fonter. Yeah, we've done a bit of changes now, so it's what I have is not correct anymore. But
next time, next week or 2 weeks?
Yeah, because we have a session, time edit, it says next week, but
time edit says next week. Oh, so we might have to update.
My fault. I haven't reported the correct one, so that one replaced by you gonna have individual sessions again next week, aren't you?
Yeah, I was.
So tutoring sessions.
Yeah, because there were tutoring sessions next week. Let's have a look and see what.
So I'll just send an email to the organizer of time edit to have it corrected.
Oh no, internet's. Yeah. No, look, time. I haven't updated time edit, but what the dates that are on Fonter are the correct ones, the updated ones there. But I'll make sure.
Make sure that time edit is in sync with Fonter.
Yeah. You'll do that?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Any questions before I pack my things and leave? Comments even? Well, that's sort of a comment. I like that. That's a good comment. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for staying.